Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Mia, and I'm so excited to have my dear friend Bree Melansen here with us. Bree she's a spiritual channel. She's a teacher, and she helps people to get in touch with their intuition and kind of their soul communication, or connected to source or God, however you want to language it. Bree's amazing. Thanks so much for joining me here, Bree. How are you today?
Oh, I'm super honored. I'm good. I'm in California. The sun is shining. I'm in like Central California, like Carmel, Big Sur, and I think I've just learned that because it's always sunny in Southern California. But yeah, today feeling good.
I mean, I don't know. Right now, they're getting like the
Yeah,
weather is like rebalancing, so it's so interesting. It's actually, I mean, I'm not in SoCal right now, but they've been getting like so much rain. It's so interesting. So I feel like the weather is we're going
yeah.
rebalancing kind of. So it's
I feel like
interesting.
yeah, any state or like area needs it. California is definitely up
Oh
there.
yeah, they've
Mhm.
just been hit with it. But I just wanted to share a little bit, like before we jump in. I mean, I don't, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on everything, but I just feel like we're in this really potent time. People call it ascension or the Great Awakening, or there's lots of language for it. There's been so many prophecies about this time. And to me, it's like, I just think of it essentially as like the frequency is shifting. We're having to shift into a higher frequency. And as a kind of like a side effect of that, it's like everything is falling away that's not aligned with these higher frequencies. So it's like within and without, as above, so below. So we're watching all this stuff, 3D kind of old structures crumble out in the world. And then within ourselves, we're going through this process of like, it can be like a physical or emotional detox. And essentially, we're like upping our vibration. And so I was so excited to talk to you today because I feel like, you'll explain it better, but I feel like that's like the crux of your work. You're really helping people to up level and up their vibration, and through resonance and through letting, limiting beliefs go. And so I just want to hand it over to you. If you could talk just a little bit about, yeah, your take on this time and just resonance and what that means to you, and just kind of your mission, I guess.
Yeah, sure. You're like anything. I don't know. Go for it. Yeah, you know, I think it's helpful to kind of explain because we'll be talking about it. I reckon my path was just like a matter of following my curiosity, and I was almost like I want to say late to the party. I mean, I followed my in a matter of like when I actually started, um, and when I first learned to channel, I like the first thing that when I connected with the Pleiadians, they were like, "Oh, you came for the Great Awakening," and it was all this thing. And I just was like, "This is so dramatic." I was just like, "You guys are being so drama, okay?" Like, because they tend to be really flowery with their language. Anytime when it comes through at least with my experience in channeling, and so I also what I'm so thankful for you is you helped me have like a higher insight, or you've kind of like been in the game as far as like a certain type of awareness. I've always been driven to like healing and helping people break free from suffering and limitation, and so that's been like my drive. um
Mhm.
and so it's really beautiful that like now I'm like witnessing the way that it can help the collective on a deeper level in a sense because of this, even though I didn't see it coming really. It's not like why I started this work. And
Wow.
yeah, so it's a really sweet example at two of just like following what is innate and intrinsic, and then the path is revealed. Um
Yeah.
and I think that, you know, we will continue just to experience layers of it. And I'm continually surprised by it, because I think sometimes when you're in like the spiritual world and there is this unconscious, very unconscious kind of like, oh yeah, them, like other people are going to go through. And then nobody is exempt, particularly right now, from needing to level up, no matter what, no matter if you're already, because the ego will be like, we already meditate once a day, or we already did like all the personal work, like we don't wanna, but really no one's exempt from leveling up, whatever that may be. And yeah, I think my drive and like my greatest passion, it always makes me cry. Like I just, like the best way, I love helping people to break free and to like get past, the illusion of we are our pain. It's not that, we're human, we are sentient beings, we're going to go through things.
Yeah.
But using, our feelings as like a navigational, like a compass, essentially, because I guess, to your question around resonance and energy, we are innately harmonious, and we forget that somehow. IDK how, but like, the body innately heals. We come
Yep.
into the world open, joyful, like, imaginative. And the essence of our conditioning and what we experience is all a part of it. And our more or less like what we develop as our identity or ego, it is really meant, like we're in these bodies as vehicles, to ascend, so that our, whatever you want to call it, your soul, your intrinsic essence, the all that is, everything in the world exists with the purpose of expansion or evolution and harmony. And our bodies are that, and even our ego and our mind. And so it's really a matter of kind of like, in a very simple sense, just coming back to our most intrinsic essence, versus like achieving sometimes a certain frequency. Sometimes you get like caught up in like, I gotta get in alignment, and like just, remembering that, the entire universe is held in essence by harmony, right? By the intelligence that is harmony. And if you want examples, you can look at nature and you see like a flock of birds or the weather or whatever. It's always rebalancing, and chaos is always inspiring like a deeper harmony. And so when it comes to, reaching resonance within ourselves, thinking of it in that way of, how is this a call for me to return to my intrinsic essence and resonance? Because, you hear kind of like the spiritual jargon is, you're coded with the, codes in within you, which is like, not, no, of course you are, but like a flower is, right? And we have that. And how could we not, when it's all that we witness when we look at the natural world is how everything is held by this immaculate intelligence, and the beauty that we're in awe over is the resonance or the witnessing of that unfolding. And then how could it not run through us? Like, duh. That same intelligence runs through us. And so it's really a matter of coming home to that, because when we are in alignment with our inherent resonance, we're in alignment with the intelligence of creation, of what we can't deny, that there is something that is creating this beauty. And then you just have to think, okay, who's better for the job? Like, my my ego or this intelligence that's running through me. So yeah, I guess I enjoy helping people to like create pathways to get there, instead of just being like, you're all that it is, babe. Like, it's just,
Well, I love that it's kind of like, yeah, it's like what I hear you saying, kind of, it's almost like we're just releasing the programming that we've picked up, that it wasn't really ours. We weren't born in with that programming, and releasing resistance, which is ultimately, in a sense, like, yeah, like you're saying, it's like it can be joyful and it can be easy. It's like, how hard do we want to make it for ourselves? Like, as like these things can just fall away. It's maybe just a matter of like how attached to things we are, or structures, or these programs, because they say programs and usually like that's got like a negative connotation, right? Like it's like kind of somebody telling us when we're like a kid that for me it's like, oh, you talk too much or you daydream too much or whatever it is. But um we have gotten, and me through my life, attached to some of these kind of programs because they tie in with like how I work every day or how I produce events even, or stuff like that. So it's kind of feels like an invitation to like reconsider all those things. Like maybe this could be more fun or more easy. Maybe I don't have to be doing things the same way I always was. And I guess with that, like it could be so joyful and easy, like you just let it go, or we can make it really hard for ourselves and feel like sticky. Um, yeah, so it's interesting. And I'm
Yeah.
feeling,
Sorry,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Like, what are you
Yeah.
feeling? Tell me what you're feeling.
Oh, I'm feeling a lot of that like stuff coming up right now. It's like stickiness, or just for me, even just like I was telling Bree before we jumped on, like I had a massive kind of like detox this week, and it was like really trippy because it felt like it was very energetic, like that we one of the nights I was kind of not feeling well and kind of having night sweats, and it was like I feel like all this programming was being released around like I could hear these voices. It was kind of my voice in my head through this kind of sleep weird, liminal state, like of all the stuff I kind of absorbed from people that have maybe told me stuff that I didn't have to take in about myself that was negative, but I did, that I was kind of owned, or just like my negative self-talk about myself. And it felt like all of that was leaving, and it was a really wild feeling. But then I kind of processed that over the next couple of days, like, well, wow, that was really powerful. And I kind of am getting from other people talking to me, friends or just in the collective, that's kind of an energetic right now of just that's not aligned with this higher frequency we're moving into. So we just got to let it go and just witness it and don't get caught up in it. And a story about it, just kind of try to let it go with ease.
Yeah, I think, in one sense, I guess if we don't choose it, it'll be like chosen for us. Like I experienced this last year. Like I felt like the universe just like body slammed me and was like, bitch down, like stay. And I kept trying to get up, and it was like, and I finally just had to surrender, and I'm still kind of coming out of it. And it was just really interesting because I have been so, like I did readings for many years, and I still like help friends whenever, but I, through those readings and I guess like my drive around like, how do I help people get to where they want to be? Because if you have a reading and somebody's like, yeah, I see your highest expression, and it's nice to be held in that way and have somebody see it. But then if you're not in a place of resonance or consciousness to actually be there, then it's like frustrating, right? Because you're like, because when I did readings, people be like, yeah, I know, that's what I see. And I'm like, why are you calling me? So it was kind of like, okay, how do we get you there? Like, how do we get you from A to B? So through that like curiosity and drive, I saw the patterns, right, around, hundreds of thousands of people around like what gets us blocked, how do we get unblocked? And, we don't hold on to things for no reason. We, when we're talking about the ego, it essentially is always seeking safety and love externally, right? So when we're on the struggle bus, we know that we are coming from that conditioned self or the programming, which isn't all that bad. I think where we go, not necessarily wrong, or where we get stuck is that, as you said, we start identifying with it. We identify with the pain, we identify with the history, it was mine. It was nobody's pain, not your pain. It wasn't your mom's pain. It wasn't your grandmother's pain. And so, I mean, I want to talk specifically how to unplug from that, but I have really like prided I'm like, oh, I figured it out. I got the methods. I know how to get there. I know how to like get myself. I'm the whiz. I'm the whiz. And I can connect, and I had all the ways to do it. And then going through this state of just like having nothing wrong on the surface, or not being able to actually see it, probably like my patterns and what was keeping me from expanding. And so like the body slam just like caused me to really surrender and stop. And I'm starting to process a silver lining. Usually, we have things where like this crappy thing happened. And for me, like that's what was easier from, I don't have a problem going through sorrow and hardness and stuff, but I also, because I know on the other side of that is more freedom, more expansion. So I can almost get excited. I'm like, oh yeah, let's dance, let's do this. Cause I know this dance. So anyway, I think that, you know, we're all going through like both in a way. And
Mhm.
the essence of it is like, if we aren't choosing it, you know, what I'm realizing now is I needed to be put in a place where I have like a clean creative slate and to go about things differently. But because I was like, oh, this works, I was kind of staying in the same place, but I wasn't like unhappy. So it's like that's kind of one way, you know, that life will choose for you in a way. Um,
Mhm.
anyway, when we do, you know, look at like, let's say programming or the identity, it can be really helpful to like, not in making we don't want to make ourselves wrong because then that's the identity trying to heal it. And you're like in another wrestling match, healing, you're not getting anywhere. But if you can gently just look at like, you know, what is my ego? What is my identity? Or who am I beyond? If I'm not who and what I've been told, then who and what am I? And knowing again that like that ego is really just a manifestation of our conditioning, and we need certain aspects. We're like, again, we're here in this physical body. It's just not supposed to drive, right? It's supposed to be like a
Yeah.
tool.
So like I've heard people say, because I if we could just talk a little bit of like what the ego, even just that word means to you, because I think people use it so differently. And I don't know if it was you or someone else I've heard, you know, kind of equate it to when they, you know, ego as a limiting belief, not necessarily like to, you know, erase that, you know, they're you're saying there's a positive ego, but do you know what I mean? Is it like, do
Yeah,
you put it to that kind of a limiting, letting go of limiting beliefs?
in a
Or
way. And even that, I think we can like go higher or more neutral in a sense. Because if you think
Mhm.
about truth, it's neutral, right?
Right.
It's harmonious. And so when we take all those filters out, we can see that even, you know, limitation, which it is, it's really just like a linear thought. It's like, so the ego is the aspect of us that like separates from our wholeness, right? And again, we're here in duality. We need a little bit of something. It's not supposed to drive, is all. And so
Right.
realizing that also that like it helps to not beat it's helpful to like as a tool to not beat ourselves up, is to realize that it is just conditioning and it's a linear thought, and it's not necessarily our limitation and our pain, although it's important, of course, to take accountability and be like, okay, you know, how am I participating in this? How am I keeping this belief or habit um active within my life? And if we can, when things are hard, I always try to look at like the larger truths. Again, like say, coming back to everything exists to serve expansion and harmony, then we can look at like, what is this belief um, or circumstance actually here for? So the ego, because it's limited, is always going to be in negotiation for a sense of love or safety with the outside world. So that is a dead end because it's impossible for for us to know love or safety, um, or have others like hold it up for us, right? Like all of our healing essentially comes back to coming back to our intrinsic essence or wholeness. So when we are struggling, we know that we're leaning a little bit too much from the ego. And so then, sorry, I'm like, I can also provide a process that can kind of
Yeah.
help like, get us,
Love
get
that.
you to the other side. Uh,
Yeah.
at the same time, I think it's also helpful to just like spend a little time softly considering like, my ego is the aspect of me that, you know, like if you're doing some free writing or you're just going on a walk and, you know, that is protective, that is, you know, helps me F it up. Like it can be like on all sides, you know. And then my soul, or my intrinsic essence, or who I really am, is the aspect of me that, right? Is the aspect of me that probably really feels connected to life, that, creates our drive, that seeks and becomes present in creativity. And another way to look at that is just like, when do I forget my ego exists? Like, what are the things that bring me life energy? Those are the moments when we are kind of in tangible connection with our soul, which is our tether to source and that greater intelligence. So just kind of like discerning those two is a really wonderful step. And I think, using even that, those feelings as a gauge, again, like, this is our emotions really are just our guidance system. And it's letting us know where we stand in relation to that separate self, or our soul, or source.
Yes. I feel like that's really, that just keeps coming in for me this week, is to kind of talk more about the emotions, and um because we've really not gotten any guidance in our culture about them. And when I was tuning into it, because I was gonna, do a little talk on like meditation and stuff, things that have helped, tools that have helped me, I was really thinking like, wow, not only that, not only have we received no guidance, it's like really been, um I mean, the amount of like psych meds and things like that, things from the pharmaceutical industry, there are so many ways that we are invited to just suppress or to check out, to disassociate with these things. And even from a young age, I mean, that happened to me. I was given a lot of opportunities to do that when I was like a young teenager. And that was just when I was coming into the power of the emotions. And it was like, and it is a lot, and they are very powerful. And I believe as creator beings, we're using them to like create with. We're using them to kind of shift our reality. So it's so huge to not suppress them, to be able to learn how to like sit with them and process them, right? And I don't use the word control, but to kind of get to realize, like you're saying, Bree, like who is our essential self, and what is that, and what are the emotions, to just kind of get a handle on it all and realize like how important they are, and how they can guide us if we let them. Even, um especially with things like mental health, like if we're starting to feel whatever we're feeling, a little sad, to just pay attention to that, because it's a pointing to something to address. And if we just cover it up or escape, we're not going to get that gem that's there, or that's not going to be able to pull that thread, which will lead us, I think, to, expansion and relief ultimately. And then it can get heavier and heavier and get into something physical in the body. So I just feel like the emotions it's like
Yeah.
it's so important.
It is, at a time too where it's like, as you're sharing, it's never been easier to like evade in some ways. Like the options, you just pick up your phone, you can just like, it's so easy to check out. And at the same time, it's interesting because it's also feeling like healing and alignment is really just a non-negotiable. Like, yeah, I know for me, I don't get away with the things that I used to around like checking out. So there is that like heightening that's bringing everything up to the surface.
Yeah.
And this is a little may present as basic, but I think that the most helpful thing that we can do is take time, and then the action around considering what brings me into harmony. What are
Yeah.
the things that fill me with life force? And it doesn't have to be meditation. It's like, when do you feel alive? Like, and for me, that might be like dancing or in nature, or, and meditation will be a part of it. But without that baseline, then it's harder for us to navigate our emotions. And or it's almost like they get tangled up. So if we're doing some things to stay more or less aligned, and in a very simple way, like And I like this approach also because it's like, it doesn't come from a place of fixing, right? You're not like, how do I fix myself? And now I have this like condition, and now what, we have conditions so that we can have like the pathway to healing around them, essentially, to understand them. But so when you're maybe spending time to like write about it, and then actually looking at like, how can I integrate this within my life? What does it look like every day? What does it look like within my week or my month, etc.? So creating that foundation, we start to essentially tune ourselves more to our innate harmony and or the field. And again, I like the idea of like taking out almost all the spiritual stuff, right? It's just like get in your bodies and get in the present. And yeah, do things that make you feel aligned in life. So then from there, it's like when we have something that comes up like anxiety, we're going to catch it before it becomes an anxiety disorder. And and then I'm taking something for it, because the nudges are really soft. And again, just trying on that like reframing around, these emotions are here to serve me. These emotions are here as guidance. And so if that is true, what is my body asking for in this moment? And anxiety itself is really a call to presence, to get back in the body. I mean, I notice it when I'm like doing two things at once, or doing something to evade the thing that I likely should be doing, or and so paying attention to the nudges. And I walked a friend's son through like this really simple process, and he was only like 18 or 19 at the time, and he didn't have any like spirit, he's just a regular old 18 or 19-year-old. And it was essentially just like taking a breath, and you can like tap on the heart, but really just getting in communication with the body and trying it on, and just saying like, body, what do you need from me right now? And you'll get an answer. Like you'll essentially sense it. And obviously the more you practice and the greater kind of field of foundation you can create. But our body is essentially, there is that sense of like, it keeps score, but it keeps score because it's like, just like, emotional pain, it's showing us where we need to align, right? And so again, thinking of it that way, is we tend to think like, oh, this stupid body is not doing what I want it to do, but it's literally designed to like always bring us back to harmony.
Right.
So what does it mean when this is a call home, to truth? And when it comes to like, we are sentient beings. We are meant to feel our way through this life. Like we're not supposed to, when I use the word neutrality, I more mean like, harmonious, and we're always going to experience a range. So when we are experiencing something like, anger, frustration, sorrow, whatever, anxiety, being aware, I'll walk through this like 4-step process, and it essentially just like helps you unplug, because again, like the body doesn't hold on to things for no reason. We don't hold on to our negative beliefs for no reason. When we have patterns in our life that aren't serving us, they're serving essentially the ego or the smaller self, because it's keeping in place a false sense of safety or worth. I mean, it comes down to like safety or love, but there's a lot of words in there. It can be like, our worthiness or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I like to kind of think of it as like, okay, what is this thing? What am I actually getting out of this thing? Because a lot of times we're not honest with ourselves about something that we might be getting from it. It could be, illness, like a long illness. It could be attention. It could be, love that we don't think we can get any other way. Or there's a lot of kind of like hidden, or just things that we are getting from things, right? That we're if we're not honest about, then we can't kind of like let that go, or just see it for what it is. But also appreciate that that's essentially a part of ourself trying to give us what we need too. So like you're saying, it's still something beautiful.
Yes. We're just looking, it's like basically the body's going like, wrong way, babe, wrong way. Like you're looking at the guy or the job, or the condition, you know, and so it's just like, I'm just like hearing like the beep, beep, it's like, back it up, like, come back, babe. And yeah, it'll get louder if we don't listen. So anyway, just that the first step is just recognizing that everything is essentially an invitation to expand and harmonize, like literally everything that exists. And there's no, we shouldn't should on ourselves around this process of ascending or healing, because it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like, I remember one time I was looking at a family member and I was like asking my guides, I'm like, they're not learning their lesson, like, why are they getting it? And the guides are like, they can take as long as they want, babe, like as many lifetimes. And so it's fine. There's no rush to the finish line because there is no finish line. But everything is an invitation to expand. And so when things are triggered, when we're looking at like, oh, what is this annoying pattern? Like just recognizing our trigger that comes up, it is intended to trigger our expansion and our harmony. So then it's like, the first step is just being like, oh, it's an invitation. I forgot, and then you start to break the loop. Like you're already getting out of that in the moment when you're like, spot it, you got it. And so that's the first step. And again, not to worry if we don't choose to move forward, because the universe will be like, you want to have another go, babe? Like those are what our patterns are. It's like, you want to go again? You want to go again? And so if we do choose to accept, then the next part is, as you said, the inquiry around how is this serving my conditioned self, right? Like, and not making it wrong, but an awareness that there'll always be like a negotiation. I like to sometimes call the ego the negotiator too, because it's like, what do I got to do to get that love or like the thing or whatever it is? And so realizing, okay, what am I looking for? A sense of assuredness or safety. And this could be like, your boyfriend's not calling you enough, or the government, or like it could be anything not behaving as you would like. And so realizing that within that trigger, you're looking the wrong way, you're looking externally. And then the healing is accessing the intrinsic and or our core, our connection to who we really are and source. So that's where we'll end up. And just taking a gentle inquiry of like, what am I doing? So in this case, maybe I'm trying to unconsciously control the person or the institution or judge so that I feel safe. But again, external safety is fake news. So that inquiry, we're like, oh, wow. And you'll feel it. Like there are no wrong answers. You're just like, okay, it's basically like I have to blank or other people have to blank in order to blank.
Yeah, this is so huge, I think, for this moment, because you just kind of made me think of like, we've been talking about it, it's like an external thing that the external world is shifting right now, and our internally we're shifting right now. And, are we going to have discomfort with that? How are we going to deal with that? How do we want to deal with that? For me, I've been living a bit outside, I live off the grid. I live in a community that's pretty, I don't know, forward in certain ways. So like I don't have as much, I'm not really plugging into like a fear frequency about these changes. I'm actually like really excited because I know all these things are, like you're saying, Bree, they're leading to our expansion. Once this, the frequency is rising, and it's going to become much more easier. Things are just going to be much more harmonious. And I believe we go through cycles as a humanity, a universe. I don't even know what the language is. So like, we've been through golden ages before, and we're heading into a golden age, and it is going to be more harmonious in general, but we're on the journey right now. And so with the outer stuff, it's like, how do we want to internalize that? It's like what you're saying. I think it's so helpful because it's just to remember that I'm okay. Like, am I okay right now? Do I have food? Do I have water? Do I have nourishment? Like, and just to kind of like reground into the body and realize that no matter what happens outside of us, when the structures may fall away, it may look crazy in the media or whatever, that it actually that's not like our, that's not who we are in here, and we are okay, and that we are to know that we are safe, and that we can just kind of go through the eye of the storm with all that stuff, all this stuff, I think, with like how you're guiding people. I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's like an obvious micro macro, right? So it's like all of the um, institutions and systems that are built from what you could say is the ego or the linear that
Mhm.
serves the individual, serves the one, are falling because they're unsustainable. And
Mhm.
it's uncomfortable because we're still a part of it, no matter what, somehow. And so we hear this over and over again. It's like it's an inside job. We have like, we are one person, but it really does cross over. I mean, because when you start making the shifts in your personal lives, then you're going to be able to deal with not only what's happening on a greater scale externally. So when you become more empowered and you move through, you get to the other side within these ego deaths. And then also when you're doing that, you are opening yourself up more to your intrinsic essence, which is guided and which does know the path versus like, what am I gonna do? Oh my God, what am I
Yeah,
gonna do? It's crashing. Yeah.
totally, exactly. Because I even, I feel like, the last few years, or the co and the vid, I don't know, when going through all that, there was such an realization for me of, well, a lot of things, but that if our energy is aligned, and we are um kind of intentionally calling in a certain kind of experience. For me, it's even as basic as like, I want to have a beautiful day when I go into town today during that time when it was really wild, and I
Mm.
want to not wear a mask. I want to breathe freely, but I want everybody to feel okay, and I want to get along with people, and I want harmony. And then I would kind of like program that my day that way, and that's how it would go. And I would have these really beautiful exchanges with people. I might be like in a big store, and I'm the only one that's not wearing the thing, but I would have, people will come and talk to me. It's everything is energetic. So
Mhm.
it's just so interesting. So I feel like that was like a big opportunity to sort of play around with the energetics, and for me in a bigger way with the outer world, and see like
Yes.
what happens
Yeah.
like when I do it this
Yes.
way or when I do it that way.
Yeah, I love that. That's so empowering too. And that's one way to know when you're on track, right? And yeah, I had those too where I would like not be wearing one and like, it was, but then nobody would ever say anything anywhere and we'd have these great exchanges. And yeah, it was interesting. I definitely played with that too. And so yeah, what you're saying, essentially what we're talking about is like being able to recognize and then activate, like actually embody the greater invitation. And it's not always easy. Like, this isn't about like getting anything right or some test, but
Right.
supporting yourself and in recognizing what feels shitty and then like what would feel empowered. And so, yeah, that like the next essential like step around this is looking at, um, how is this here as an invitation? Like, what would it mean for this to trigger my expansion? What's true when I take my own identity's agenda and opinion and investment out? Because then we start getting to the higher truth. And another way to ask it is just like, how would my soul see this? You're zooming out. I mean, if we want to change our lives and if we want to expand and be bigger and have things better, you have to access that essence of ourselves, right? And so just using our cognitive ability to align is really helpful because we can't get to the energetics of it if we're holding, essentially all of these like covert programs within us. And obviously, as you shift your energy, that it's an exchange and they both shift. Um, but after kind of, really going into even just reframing the essence of like what safety is and what it feels like in the body and what it makes possible and what what can I do when I'm inherently safe? It's like, oh, well,
Mhm.
then I'm in flow, and then I get to create, and then I know what to do and when to do it. And then I'm connected to
Yeah.
my intuition. And so when we move through either the greater macro, out there, or the very personal ways in which this ego is driving, or our limitation, and being able to debunk it is actually a lot easier than we think. We just have to understand
Yeah.
how it's working.
I
Mhm.
think yeah, like it can be really easy, right? And I feel like that's why also just, I feel like a lot of people right now are talking about, well, kind of the essential self, or some people call it the inner child, but it's just getting into that space of play or joy, like just like spending time to paint or
Mm.
to garden, or just like whatever is like fun and gets us in flow, because then it's like you click right into what you're talking about. You just right there, or even like slowing down and just like looking at the detail in the tree, or
Mhm.
into the tree, or picking up a leaf, or like it's so easy to kind of reorient ourselves. I mean, we can make it as complicated or simple as we want. I mean, I still love meditating. I just love it. It makes me feel so good. But like I also just remind myself sometimes, like if I'm not doing that, that's okay. Sometimes I get busy, and just to like pick something else that just feels easy and can kind
Yeah.
of like loop me back into that state that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I love that, because again, that doesn't come from, a fixing place. It's like, what is gonna make me feel alive? Like, and I
Yeah.
like that too, just as a gauge, as we're making decisions, and when we're looking at things, quote unquote, intuitively, or throughout our day. It's like, which is gonna give me more life force energy? And and we can get, oh, what is the right path, and what should I do? And it's like, what
Right.
actually feels aligned. And a lot of times, it's scary to make those jumps because they're not rational. But ultimately, it's the quickest path, because the reason we seek anything, is, like money or whatever it is. It's like it's because we want to feel free in our expression, and we want to feel activated and present to life. I mean, even with love and that desire, sometimes, I mean, we're human, and we need touch, and it's an important thing, but sometimes we're wanting to just really feel alive and have that like poignant experience with presence. And that's essentially what love is. We're being present to like what truly is, the full essence of
Yeah.
somebody, until
So
until we get
good.
in a relationship and we're like, I have needs, and we're not fulfilling them. Um,
Oh,
and
but
then
that's
we're
why like
basically,
that first point is so beautiful, because we're just like so present. And I think that's like the teaching. It's like, no, we can also be so present without that. Or can
Mhm.
we be? Or like how can we invite that in? Just more of that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and recognize it, because everything affects everything. So when you are looking at a leaf, even though if you are getting to I mean, I've gotten so high off of like just being in presence. Like, I don't practice it enough, because I'm in some ways like the least spiritual person. Um, I'm also like, you froze, but I don't know, is she there? But essentially it's going to transfer to the way we are with everybody else.
Oh, okay, we got Bree back. Sorry, guys, the internet's everything's pretty glitchy lately. I don't if you remember what you just said, Bree, can
Well,
you
yeah,
share that?
I was just saying, like, I've gotten like quite high off of presence, and I don't, unfortunately, not that often, because I'm like, sometimes I'm the laziest or the least spiritual person, but like in my practices. But when you get again in that vibration, in that frequency, and then it's a lot easier to then take it to your loved one who didn't do the dishes, or whatever it is, right? It's like
Right. Oh yeah.
you're getting in the state of what is true, what is real, and you're in your, yeah, being able then to see more true, so that there is going to be that crossover for sure. And I think, ultimately, yeah, like, what does it mean to embody it is important question to ask, because we can like know all these spiritual, we're like, oh yeah, I know forgiveness is like freeing, and I know it's like the path to enlightenment, and I totally get it. But then it's a matter of, yeah, what does it look like to show up in that way, to have the hard conversation, or um to have a, even like a pathway. It's like, the next time I get triggered by this thing, I'm going to XYZ. I'm going to like show up differently. And that's how we change our reality, is we respond differently. And you can't just respond differently or like sage negativity away, because it's like, again, it's serving something, and we have to choose
Yeah.
the higher purpose. And so we understand, oh yeah, this is here. I see you. And I'm, however many times it takes and whatever iteration of it is, and I'm going
Yeah.
to do my best to show up and accept the invitation in this moment, and free myself and free the other person. Because then you can start looking at what becomes possible when I shift that and when I embody it. And it's like your entire life begins to, change. Yeah.
It's so huge. Yeah, I've been really like I'll say inviting myself to not, I don't want to be too hard on myself either, but like really wanting to put this into practice the last few years. Like, okay, what does it feel like when I slow myself down and I'm like, okay, that's triggering or that's upsetting. Like, how do I want to, what is this? Just kind of simple, like, what is this? How am I feeling? I'm gonna try to be in my body and just kind of like spend a little bit more time with those things and see what's at the heart of it and what can be shifted. And it's so huge. Once you start doing that, you do really see pretty quickly like, wow, things start to really change. And also just that willingness to like, if it's something really uncomfortable and really uncomfortable emotion, to just let it be, just to like sit with sit with it, because they don't last forever. I mean, it feels like it's gonna last forever sometimes, for sure. Like I get that, and I've been there, but knowing, I think just also as you get older too, and you've been through these dark nights of the soul, you're like, it's gonna pass. Okay, I'm just gonna allow,
Yeah.
allow
It
the
is,
depth
yeah, it's
of
really
this.
not comfortable. And I think, yeah, staying curious about how are you here for me, and like keeping the
Yeah.
conversation going. And remembering that, like, again,
Oh, I
it's
think we
like
lost. Oh, we lost you for a second.
summer. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm like, keep it. Okay, let's do it. Internet prayer. Yeah, just to, take accountability, but not like have to own the pain or the thing,
Yeah.
versus like it's an experience that I'm having. Sometimes we get stuck in that second step where like, what's going on? And we're like, oh, I am, like,
Oh,
but yeah,
it was
just
so, yeah, it was so huge for me to learn to also to not perpetuate it, to like find that sweet spot of like, I'm going to feel these feelings and I'm going to ask for guidance on what this means and what needs to shift. Or sometimes I just have to sit it through, feel the feelings, but not to, for me to perpetuate it with feeding it. And it's simple, like for me, that looks like when I was a teenager going through really hard times, like listening to depressing music nonstop. Like, I'm feeling so sad, I'm gonna listen to The Cure on repeat, it's just like that. And then finally realizing, oh, we can shift this. If I don't keep looping there and just like holding that frequency, then it kind of just passes through, and I usually receive some sort of teaching or guidance or like up leveling from that, and then it's gone. I don't have to live there.
right. Yeah. Show me your wisdom. Show me your higher wisdom. But I think, yeah, again, like there's that inclination for us to be like, somebody come save me and take this away.
It get
Um,
better.
yeah. And yeah, I went through a like heartbreak. I think it was like a year or two ago. And it was just so funny watching my sorrow. Like I had
Mhm.
so much sorrow, and I was like, this cannot be about this guy, because I was like not even dating him that long. And so I remained curious, and I was doing breath work, and it felt horrible. Um, and it was just so funny, like, and then I kept working through it, and like my friends would come over, we'd have dinner, and it just felt like the sorrow was like, good, they left. Like it was just like, I'm back, it's just like not going away ever. Finally for sure did. And so I think my point is, I guess it is so important to feel, and I would never say just like, it's not about just being happy. It's about, again, like understanding that invitation that sorrow has, and what's your
Yeah.
story? What do you got, babe? Where's this from? You know, what do I need to know in order to like move
Yeah.
this and release you? And I remember my guides showing me once, kind of like the essence of like, say, programming or beliefs. And it was like, just this like energy in the field. And they were kind of like, hey, you, meaning we, you came to like shift it for humanity. Like we tend to be like, oh, I came into this lifetime and I have all these lessons and I have this past life with this. And that is true, but it's like, it's not even really about our stuff. And that it's easier too, and we can see it that way. We're like, oh, it's just this like thing in the field. And when I free it up for everybody. And like
Mm,
I get to become free. And like even when we have a lot of momentum around things like, you know, my mom, my grandma, my everybody did it. It's I understand that it can feel hard and more ingrained, but at the same time, the greater the contrast, the greater the expansion, like more chaos, greater harmony, and
exactly.
awe. So you get to change it. You get to
Yes.
experience all of what, you know, maybe your ancestors weren't able to. And that's inspiring too, to think of it in a different way.
Yes. I love that. I love thinking about it that way. And I just keep looping back to that at this time. It's like we're going through this because we went through such depth of just heaviness, right? That we all had such deep desire for things to shift and to basically flip the script. So now we're getting to bring in this new era that will be the manifestation that really comes from that contrast of like, well, what do I want? You know, how would I rather things be? And I'm sure we've all had a lot of ideas about that, especially as we've gone through the past few years, especially, right? So it's like helping us bring in this new beautiful era that I think we're creating right
Yeah,
now.
it's for sure. And I guess like I I think the greatest attributes and skills to hold will be intuition, you know, that like
Mhm.
intrinsic discernment and our ability to adapt and innovate, right? And that's everything that we're talking about because, you know, it's fascinating and I get stuck on it a lot. Like, what am I going to do? And like, you know, you start, but we're not really supposed to know because just like in life, it's like we don't get to embody the fullness and the richness
Yeah.
of the satisfaction of moving through something and not knowing the path, or like learning trust or whatever it might be. So we can know the greater things, like, you know, what is not like what is built from the linear is not sustainable, so it's going to crash. Um, and then also like what it just those kind of like skills for us um to navigate our own path and knowing that, you know, we hear it on like a really cheesy level in some ways. It's like, you know, that your healing matters and, you know, you affect the world, but it really is true and there is no other way that the new systems can be created if we aren't in our own lives looking at it from the perspectives more or less of what, you know, the ideas that we've been talking about. um I think there is like for sure an essence of us needing to accept the greater invitations in order to create those the euphoria and the like the harmony. um and it's so beautiful and it's amazing because it's like essentially everything that we've been asking for. It's just like fast and not how we maybe thought, right? It's like just like anything,
Yeah.
you in a way, like you got to drop all your crap. Like if you want to be your most activated expression, you don't get to, you know, scroll away and da 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 and da 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 da. So it's like we're being stripped also, but it's like it's supporting the your most intrinsic, fullest expression in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's kind of like that's what you said. It's like we don't always know where this is leading. That's why it's going to be more harmonious for us if we're tuned into our intuition because then we're just led through the eye of the storm, or we're led to what we most need, what we most desire, um just our most expansive life self. And we're all doing this together,
Mhm.
and we're all
Yeah.
creating this together. But also a sidebar, like I do think there are a lot of I think we've been on this journey for a long time now, and there are a lot of systems already behind the scenes that have been created as for us to step into. I think we're going to modify them and create them even further, but I do think there they are already there, a lot of them, but we're gonna activate.
Yeah, no, yeah, the pathways are, yeah, I guess also, I mean, like, even within our own systems of thinking, and even with, the ways in which we are creating our businesses, or,
Right, exactly.
our own, yeah, and then on a larger scale, but, and again, I think, it's difficult because things are ingrained, and it's uncomfortable for sure to reframe our idea about safety when we have maybe thought, well,
Yep,
it's having a whatever it is, some type of bank
yep.
account or whatever it might be. Um, and I think when we can commit to like really getting curious about, again, like our intrinsic desires, those are connected to like the laws and the energy of creation, right? So it's again like who's better for the job, right? And it's we have been habituated in like leading from the ego and creating in that manner, and that's something that I've experienced in this. It was like the uni was like bitch down, and so I'm now like, okay, like it's uncomfortable, but I'm trying to really just follow where the light is for me, like what I'm actually inspired by, but it doesn't always make sense.
Mhm.
um and so, but again, how else do we learn trust and empowerment with ourselves other than, following that line? And that line is what got me. I never knew what I would be doing this. Like, it wasn't really around. I mean, like, we're the same age, and there was like books or maybe a psychic I would call, or it was never demonstrated for me. It was just like a
Right.
continual following of my curiosity.
I love that. And it's true. And that's that's like what it is. It's like we're getting guided to just to really trust that. And it's a bit rocky if we're like, I'm not ready to trust. I don't want to. But we're just getting pushed into it. But it is so beautiful. And yeah, Bree, we didn't really grow up. I like you was quite interested in all this kind of this conversation when I was young, but there weren't structures for it yet. It was we were kind of on our own back then. So it's so exciting now that there are. And on that subject, maybe before we tune out, I would love to if you want to share just a little bit more about the Pleiadians or how you connect with them, or if there's anything that they've been saying to you that
Mhm.
feels important to share right now, because I'm sure a lot of people here um are familiar at this point. I mean, I grew up reading Barbara Marciniak books, and I feel very connected to everything I've heard um so
Yeah.
far from her and from you. So anyway, yeah, if there's anything.
It's funny because I actually I didn't grow up reading her books or knowing really anything about channeling until until really maybe several years ago, like when I met, I have a mentor and she taught me how to essentially trans channel. So she introduced me to them. And the first time she was doing like these energetic activations in a group. And I'm not very like energetically sensitive. I'm obviously a feeler, but I'm not like, it's not like I'm more audient and cognizant. But
Mhm.
after this activation, I was like, I felt so good. I felt like high. I'm like, what is drugs? You want to be roommates? And I was like, who are these Pleiadians? And so she had taught me how to channel. And so I went home and I kind of was like, hey, what's the deal? Who are you guys? And I also like that I really try not to kind of take in too much so that my channel and what I receive can be clear. Although I have since finally read her books, but this is when that first time I talked to them, and they were like, "You're here for the Great Awakening," and they were like, "Hey, like, what
Right.
kind of made you guys?" And they were just like, "This an experiment," and I was like, "What?" And they said experience, and I was like, "Thanks." Just- it was, but everything that they've always shared is so beautiful and so loving. And
Mhm.
uh I they mostly share you know, a lot of things, I mean, have been more pragmatic. But one of the things that I wanted to share that they've shared is like, when I kind of went through my awakening again, like, I won't say that I just woke up, but like, you know, I'm I'm out of bed basically. Like, but I wasn't, you know, I think you caught wind of things, you know, much before anyway, when I first was kind of becoming aware of more things at play, um, I
You
was,
mean like in like the 3D world, in like
yeah,
the
yeah,
world
yeah,
of structures and governments and things?
exactly.
Okay.
Because before I was like, everything's kind of fine, you know, I was like, meh. And then I started looking under the bed and I was like, no. Anyway, so they were like, so I said, what do I do? Do I, you know, do I share? What do I share? And offered, they were like, look at the ways that we've been communicating with you like over the years. And we're always, you know, they never say what you should do. It's never doomsday. Like those are also kind of cues that somebody's personality may be in a channel, because they will essentially, what they were saying is like, everything we do is to get you to resonate with truth.
Mm.
As without being able to resonate with truth, you can't activate. You can't, you're not able to make the decisions. So it's like, it can't just be the information, right? And I really also love that because of everything that we're talking about. You know, it's about resonance. It's about your inherent resonance. Let's say harmony or inner peace or alignment or flow, that we have to be there in order to catch. You got to be home to catch the downloads, you know? And when we are sharing with the world, that's how we can be like the most poignant, is when it's coming from that like embodied innate wisdom and experience, like your life experience, why you're here to fully experience all of these things. And when you can share from that place, it's so much more poignant. And when we open these pathways in the, you know, vast ways that are, you know, through creativity and through healing and following essentially the light, your what they showed recently too was really beautiful, is like, sometimes our overwhelm when it comes to all of this is like, oh my gosh, it's out there, what are we going to do? But when we are aligned with our like intrinsic desires and we're doing things again that are like, they're powered by the laws of creation. And so if I'm following that, I'm activating it in the field for others without me needing to yell at the mountaintop and say what I'm doing. The embodiment is like, it really is everything. And I actually got to see it in a reading with somebody, and she's an artist, and we were talking about, you know, what is your freest expression? And she was like working with all these very like natural fibers, and it was just really within her community. But I was shown how much it activates in the field because it's charged with like creation energy, is harmonious, expansive, and unconditional, resonates beyond conditions. So that is kind of like a good example of how your frequency can affect the greater whole. And I like those two reference points because it's one thing to say like energy is everything, but beginning to really like watch that in our lives, like as everything that we've been, you know, kind of chatting about, is like following it, being curious about it, getting on board for it, training our mind or retraining our mind to move towards it. And essentially when we do, we have the momentum of creation energy moving with us and for us. And that's like what the idea is, like the universe is conspiring in your favor because everything is driven by harmony and evolution. So when we can get our mind, then it's like we like ride the wave. And so I'm trying to think of some other things that they've shared. I mean, they're so sweet because they just share the same, they essentially share the same things in so many nice, loving words. It's like any angle, I'm like, hey, what about this? And it's like always comes to the same place, but they're happy to indulge and offer insight.
I love that. I mean, I think that's just a beautiful note to end on. I mean, that's what you shared is so poignant, and that really does feel like, you know, just so important to remember, just us being. And that's what I've heard, you know, kind of how Extension explained is like we're moving into a being universe. So it's kind of maybe it's just us valuing yourselves as what you said, just that beacon, that frequency, and that's enough, you know,
Yeah.
it's enough.
And
It's
it
enough.
is, and it's also like not docile, right? You're not like eating potato chips and you're like happy and you're like, it's fine. Like, not that there's anything wrong with that. Like, also, yes, I don't, and but yeah, it's like when you are in your state of light, when you are being the light, meaning when you are being really your most expanded, freest expression, um, you're activated, right? And you're in the right place at the right time. And I've had so many things open simply from working on my energy. And I like did this like 21 day, I do like a 21 or 30-day ritual. And it's just consistent free writing and these anchors where you're like connecting with frequency and you do whatever you need to do to get in alignment and get your mind on board. And I did it, and it wasn't about like I just was like, I want to open my heart. And like the next week, I had so many things come in. You know, I had like Gaia reach out to me. I had a sweet Leanne Rhymes asked me to be in her podcast. Like my insight timer suddenly got like 100,000 listens, and then somebody else from a like big, I don't know, Instagram account reposted things. But it was so clear. It was so clear that, and that happened. It continually happens to me, and I'm sure yeah, all of us have those experiences of tending to our energy and letting the intelligence align, and also acting, paying attention, knowing to what feels inspired versus I should. I just want to offer that because it's like, yeah, it is about, all the ways that we show up and the ways we come from our heart and our relationships, and again, how that opens within others and what it activates within others. So yeah, no small acts of love. um
Mm, I love
yeah.
that's so beautiful. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I feel like that's just a beautiful point to end on. I just
I
want to like
know we gotta.
write that out. Yes, remember that every day. Um, but yeah, well, this is so fun. Thank you for being here, Bree, and everybody. Like, if you're not familiar, I'll put Bree's links below, and she has some new stuff out on Gaia too. If you have Gaia to tune into, that's really fun. And yeah, we'll share that below.
You are a star to me, Mia. It makes me cry because I'm just so thankful for your light in my life. And just so beautiful. Like this will be very quick, but I went to Hawaii to like swim with the dolphins. We both had that similar call to the Big Island, many moons ago.
Mhm.
I just was thinking the other day how I'm like, it's so beautiful. My resonance like puts us in touch, and Tahiti, and like the women that are on the island that are like activated, I'm like, no prob. Like just come into my life. Like, even though I'm like here for the dolphins. But it's also such a good example of what we're chatting about, and the resonance with I want to also say real quick, because it's wild that we
Mhm.
found out that we grew up,
Yeah.
essentially going to a very tiny town in Michigan every summer. We were, unbeknownst to us until, last year, that we were in the same tiny little town in Michigan every summer. We
So
probably,
it's so wild, you guys. It's like I don't know anybody from there. I mean, I have my friends growing up from there, but it's such a tiny random place. And I love the synchronicity of that. No, it's so cool. It's so
Like
special.
literally up the street. It's wild. And a
It's
good
really
example of what we're talking about. Yeah,
yeah,
just
just like that, bringing it in. And then I love the Bree. You didn't, yeah, Bree. I don't. I'll post maybe some images of Bree's last time on Big Island where she swam with the dolphins. It's so beautiful, and that's resonance too. And that's like proof because they just come. They choose you. They choose to show up to you in the water if they're feeling your vibe. And so that's just another beautiful example.
I was so thankful. Yeah. And when I was on the beach waiting for them that day, I kept getting, I have to go deeper into my intention, which is essentially like more pure or more aligned with source. And they came at the very last hour because I had to catch a flight. It was like, I got there at 7, it was like 8 o'clock, nothing, 9, 10. I was like,
Wow.
oh. And then I just dropped in and I shifted it. And then I heard this guy go, the dolphins are here. We went out and they did. I was aware, I'm always aware of my ego because you like want it to be about you, but I had already kind of cleared it when I got in the water, you know? But they did keep coming by me because I was like going away from the other people that were swimming and they were just like, eh. And I was like, hey guys. It's about
I
their
love
vibe.
it. Yeah, it's like real life playing with the vibes, like what am I putting out? What are they giving back? They're showing up. They're not showing. It's so fun. It can be
Animals.
fun. Yeah, it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, so thank you. I'm very thankful for you in my life. And yeah, let's keep on keeping on.
Keep it on. Well, to do this again, it was so fun. And thank you guys for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Hope you have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Bye.